What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. All right, today I got a cool one for you. It's special, and the reason it is because the history behind it. Now, if you've been watching the channel and you're going to continue to watch it, you're going to realize one thing real quick. I love history, whether it's American history, whether it's world history, whatever it is. I love to know what came before me. I love to know the stories. I love to go to the places. I love to know what was here before and where did it go. So we're going to talk about something today. As I walk around UTA, UTA is the University of Texas in Arlington. And we're going to tell a story because there's a big history on this campus, and it pretty much just lies right in the middle of the campus. People walk by it every day. Some people probably know the story. Some people probably don't. But the fact is, it's just amazing that we can walk around every day and maybe not even realize what we're walking on, what we're walking by, and what happened where we're walking. It's just absolutely amazing. And today we're going to tell a little story. So walk around with me and let's chat. So first, I'm going to start off by telling you about a gentleman by the name of J.T. Upchurch. Now, Mr. Upchurch was born October 29th, 1870 in Bosqueville, Texas. All right. When he was 22, in the year 1892, he would marry a woman by the name of Maggie May Adams. And together, they would both pursue their religious work and try to do good for the world. So they ended up moving to Waco, Texas to start their married life. And in Waco, as the story goes, Mr. Upchurch stumbled across a woman in the red light district of Waco. And after that, he decided he was going to begin work on the ministry of what he considered them as fallen women. All right, so now there was purpose. There was purpose. So in 1894, after they decided what they were going to do, him and his wife founded the Berachah Foundation. And then it was in 1901 that Upchurch purchased several acres of land in Arlington from a Mr. and Mrs. J.D. Cooper. And then in 1903, the Berachah Industrial Home for Redemption of Erring Women was founded. And that is what brings us here today. All right, so now that the Berachah home was up on these several acres of land here in Arlington, they built an infirmary on the property, they built an auditorium, school, there was stables, and there was also a cemetery. The cemetery is why we're here today. So this cemetery, so back then, there was a huge epidemic, an absolute huge outbreak of the measles, and it took a lot of lives. And it was no different on this property here in Arlington, Texas. So in the middle of the campus at UT Arlington, that cemetery stands today. And we're going to go check that out. And the reason I think it's cool, and I don't mean cool like because people died, I don't mean cool because an epidemic took a bunch of lives. I mean cool because even though life went on, society went on, a great university was built, it's a great campus, beautiful, they absolutely maintain it well, the cemetery is still here. And we're going to go look at that cemetery. And the reason it intrigued me, because a lot of people, they call it like the Cemetery of Arlington for infants, the nameless children. There's a lot of different names for the cemetery because a lot of the headstones that are out there, they don't have names. And we're going to see what they say. But anyway, let's go take a look around the cemetery. Real quick, as you walk up, you see the chain link fence. It's a square chain link fence, goes around what is the cemetery. And when you walk up, you got the gate that's open. And then you see this right here. Berachah Home and Cemetery. This is the site. The Berachah Rescue Society was organized at Waco in 1894, which is what we discussed, by Mr. Reverend J.T. Upchurch for the protection of homeless women and unwed mothers. 9 years later, he opened the Berachah Industrial Home at this site. 10 buildings were located here, including a print shop for publication. Wow. You guys can continue reading on your own. Pretty much the top part is what we discussed. A couple of things there on the bottom we didn't. But yeah, it was on this property. It was on this property, which is now mostly been purchased out and turned into UTA, all for educational purposes. But obviously, I don't have nothing that can pinpoint where the site was, but we know it was here. We know Mr. Reverend Upchurch, somewhere on this land, on this property, started his foundation to help women. And it was somewhere here that these women stayed, were helped by this man, had children, and ultimately lived their lives. Crazy. So as we walk around the cemetery, again, I want to say that I think it's very cool what Reverend Upchurch did, because if you try to think, okay, maybe not so much today, you got the LGBTQ community, you got a lot of people that think women still don't get full access to the rights of men, and it may be true in some cases. But we know, you think about 40, 50 years ago, they definitely weren't given the same rights and the same respects as men. It just is what it is. It was true. But they kept fighting. Women kept fighting for their rights. And I think ultimately it came a long way. We're all equal. A lot of people don't want to see it that way. But the bottom line is we are. We are all absolutely equal, and we should be treated as such. We have the right to make our own choices in life. But I can go on. That's a whole nother video. But as it pertained to the women that were at Reverend Upchurch's house, you know, it's cool what he was doing, because back then it was the same as the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. It was actually even a little harder, because if you were an unwed woman with children, or if you were considered a prostitute, or a woman that was suffering from addiction, substance abuse, anything like that, it was really frowned upon then. And it was much more difficult to be respected or looked at as such a good person to society. It was very hard if you had a bad reputation like that. But right now, I'm walking around the cemetery. We're going to check out a couple headstones at where the Berachah house once stood. So the first thing and one of the reasons I came here is there's a lot of no-name stones here. You got ones, and obviously I showed you, say infant 17, infant number 16. I'm looking at one right now that says infant number 15. And pretty much what it is I don't know, because you can look into it a little bit. Were they stillborns? Did they die at birth? Did they just die at a young age and they were never given a name? I don't know. But there's quite a bit of those around here. And that just really makes you wonder. And it's actually kind of cool, because right here, this one has a toy on it, a small dinosaur on infant number 15. And just to know that somewhere under this ground, there are bodies, there are children. And from what I read, there's some young adults that are buried here. Don't know if there's truth to that, but mostly children. And if you walk around, there was one in particular I was looking for. Let's see if we can find it. But basically what it is I don't know if it was the measles outbreak. I don't know what it was, but death came quick to a lot of people. And they also say that when it came to the Berachah house, when girls or young women did want to give up their children, Reverend Upchurch made it a rule, especially if you were going to stay in the house. You had to work, you had to go to church, and if you wanted to give your baby up for adoption, you had to at least take care of that baby for 1 year. Doesn't say why. My mindset is more than likely, keep that baby, your own flesh and blood, with you for a year. If you still desire to give them up after a year, then maybe that's probably the best thing. But that was kind of my logic, was maybe he wanted them to realize, hey, you don't want to give up your child. Trust me. And I believe that's a good way to do it. So to close out, as I stand right here in the middle of the cemetery that is still considered, but once was, the primary and only cemetery of the land that the Berachah house stood on for these women. These women that ultimately had their struggles, no different than the rest of us these days, or no different than the people that will come in the future. We all struggle from life. Some of us get consumed by stress, depression, addiction, greed, many things that can consume us. But in the end, we're all human. I think everybody that does bad in this world was consumed by something, whether it was the thoughts of something that was considered to possibly be pleasurable. You think about a lot of serial killers, the Bundys, the BTKs. They all said they did these things because they were fantasies. They were human, but they were consumed. And ultimately that led to tragedy and disaster. Tons of people's lives because of what they did to their loved ones. Ultimately, they paid for it with their lives. And I got no problem with that. But Reverend Upchurch, he knew these women were struggling. He's seen it with his own eyes. And he decided he would try to do something. We can't save everybody. But if you put a little bit of effort in and you really desire and have a passion to do something, go do it. And I'm sure that there was quite a few women that were positively impacted by what Reverend Upchurch did for them. And I'm sure there was some that it didn't help. But in the end, he did something great in my eyes. And I have never heard nothing negative about him, any type of dark side to him. I'm not saying there wasn't. But usually when these priests or reverends or anybody has something negative to come after the positive they did, you hear about it. With Reverend Upchurch, you didn't hear none of that. But anyway, again, here I am in Arlington, Texas, at the cemetery that once stood on the property where the Berachah house stood. Just crazy to think that there was probably children playing on this land at one time. People just trying to go to church, live their life, and change their life. Kind of similar to what stands here now. The University of Texas in Arlington. People try to come here, grow their mind, ultimately change their life. Some things never change. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I had a blast coming out here. I really wanted to come see this and pay my respects to the fallen, those that died. Don't know all the reasons why each one of them died, but we do know, like I said, that there was a big epidemic at that time, and that could have consumed most of them. But then again, like you said, it was just bad times, and bad things happen. But anyway, thank you, everybody, for coming along with me on this one. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And if you want to go out there and see something, go see it. If you want to go out there and do something, go do it. And remember, dream big.